Hello everyone and welcome to Study IQ English. I'm Joycey Joy and we are going to discuss the 8th chapter, that is Industry and Infrastructure, from the Economic Survey 2021-22. We have already started with this chapter in the previous video. We'll be continuing with it. Let's get started. We have discussed about the overview of this chapter, the IIP Index of Industrial Production. We discussed about the FDI in industrial sector, the performance of CPSCs. Now we are coming to sector-wise performance and issues in the industry. So here we will be discussing each important sector separately and we will also see what are the issues that the industry face. First is the steel sector. Despite being hit by the COVID-19, the steel industry has bounced back in 2021-22. During the time of the pandemic, the steel industry had been affected. The reason being that steel is used in construction, iron and steel. Then apart from construction and buildings, steel is also used in consumable products. So there was a lack of demand generated due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the steel industry has recovered and bounced back in 2021-22 financial year. It is expected to increase in demand on account of Government of India's focus on infrastructure development, including roads, railways and defense production. We know that the Government of India is focusing more on developing infrastructure. If you see the central government's policies and also the state government's policies, like for example, the central government has given long-term loans to the state governments. These are conditional loans saying that the money should be spent on infrastructure or capital goods. So looking at the policies of the government, we understand that the government is very ambitious about the infrastructural development of the country. Keeping in mind about the infrastructural development of the country and the focus of the Government of India, there is an increased expectancy that there is an increased demand for steel. Now, PLI scheme has been announced for specialty steel. PLI scheme is Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Production Linked Incentive Scheme is on the basis that incentives will be given on the production of certain commodities and these incentives will be linked to the quantity of production taking place. So, PLI scheme for specialty steel. Domestically manufactured iron and steel products, DMI and SP policy, quality control order and R&D scheme, promotion of R&D in iron and steel sector. So, domestically manufactured iron and steel products. Then, quality control order and research and development scheme. So, all these are for the promotion of research and development in steel, which means government is trying to improve the quality of steel available. Second is coal. Coal accounts for 55% of country's energy need. So, coal, it amounts to 55% of our energy requirements. That is majority, more than 50% of the country's energy needs are met by coal. As per the draft national policy of Niti Aayog, the demand for coal is expected to remain in the range of 1.3 to 1.5 billion tons by 2030. So, this is as per the draft national energy policy of Niti Aayog. So, according to the draft policy of Niti Aayog, demand for coal is expected to remain very high. So, demand for coal is going to increase. So, this is a positive indication saying that the economy will revive its demand. Opening up of coal mining for the private sector is again another major measure taken by the government. Now, why is coal sector open to the private sector? To increase the efficiency and the competitiveness in this sector. Next is micro, small and medium enterprises, MSME. The share of MSME GVA in total GVA for 2019-20 was 33.08%. So, the share of MSME, that is micro, small and medium enterprises, to the total GVA was 33.08%. This itself means that, or this itself is an evidence to show that MSME sector is the backbone of Indian economy. The contribution of MSME sector towards the GVA, apart from that, being a labor intensive sector, the MSME sector also generates large scale employment to the population. Revision in the definition of MSME, which we have already discussed in the first chapter, State of Indian Economy. So the definition of the MSME sector has been changed based on turnover and investment. So that also we have covered. I'm not repeating it. Then micro small enterprises cluster development program, that is forming of clusters, a unit of MSME in one cluster. Prime Minister Employment Generation Program, PMEGP, that is Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program, scheme of fund for regeneration of traditional industries and enabling of IT ecosystem. Scheme of fund for regeneration of traditional industries. That is to regenerate the traditional industries and enabling of IT ecosystem. Next is Udyam registration portal. We will be discussing all these when we discuss about the government schemes. I am not discussing all this because there were many comments from students that the length of the video is going bit high and each chapter I am taking too much time. So I am just limiting everything to the most important points in the survey. If we are discussing the extra points and the schemes and all, it will take a lot more time. So I am not going into all that. The Champions portal, ICT based technology system for making smaller units big by helping and hand holding them. Now coming to the textiles. Textiles industry, another subsector of industrial sector. Textile industry is the second largest employment generator in the country. This is one of the biggest significance of textile industry. It is the second largest employment generator in the country. Despite being deeply affected by lockdown, it has shown a remarkable recovery. It has been affected by the lockdown. Even then, it has shown a remarkable recovery. PLI scheme, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme for man-made fiber segment and technical textiles for 40 mmf apparel and 10 technical textiles has been announced by the government. Production linked incentives, that is the incentives will be given based on the quantity of production. 7. Mega Integrated Textiles Region and Apparel Park, that is Mitra. PM Mitra, that is Pradhan Mantri Mega Integrated Textiles Region and Apparel Park. It is inspired by 5F. This is very important. Maybe if a question is asked on textile sector, you can mention about the 5Fs. Farm to fiber, fiber to factory, factory to fashion and fashion to foreign. That is from the farm, cultivation of jute and cotton to foreign, which means to the exports. The last end is exports. Okay, so from production, farm is where the production takes place, from production to exports, the connectivity between production and exports. Competitiveness incentive support of 300 crore will also be provided to each PM Mitra Park. So, incentive support, competitiveness incentive support of 300 crore will be provided to each PM Mitra Park. Special purpose vehicle which will be owned by the state government and government of India in a public-private partnership mode, in a PPP mode. Special purpose vehicle, SPV. SPV or special purpose vehicle is created for meeting a specific target. SPV which will be owned by the state government and the government of India in PPP model. Next is electronics industry. Electronics is recognized as meta resource world over. It is considered as meta resource. Now, National Policy on Electronics 2019 to position India as a global hub for electronic system design and manufacturing. So, National Policy on Electronics in 2019 was launched, and this was done to position India as a global hub for electronic system designs and manufacturing. PLI schemes again, production linked incentive schemes for large scale electronic manufacturing, IT hardware, large scale electronics manufacturing. Scheme for promotion of manufacturing of electronic components and semiconductors. These are all government initiatives. You need to learn only one or two if a question is asked in the examination regarding this sector and what are the government measures taken, you should be able to write. And there is nothing to explain here. These are all direct schemes. That's why you may feel that it's a dry topic, but it is as such. Now next is Parak, a unified laboratory network. PARAC is actually a portal and it was set up in 2021 June, wherein all accredited, certified and recognized laboratories in the country would be mapped on a GIS, Geographic Information System, for testing and certification of goods and services. So this is a portal. Actually, PARAC is a portal where all the accredited, certified and recognized laboratories, so in the country, will be mapped. That is, the location would be given on a GIS, that is Geographic Information System, for testing and certification of goods and services. Next is regarding pharmaceuticals. Indian pharmaceutical industry ranks third. Remember that, third in the world. This can be a prelims question. In pharmaceutical production by volume. This is again very important. Not by value but by volume. This is important. So India's pharmaceutical industry has the rank of 3 in terms of volume. India is the largest supplier of generic medicines. This is again very, very important. And India's global share in manufacturing of generic medicines is 20%. India manufactures 1/5, 20% or 1/5 of generic medicines in the world. So largest supplier of generic medicines with 20% share in global supply. However, country is significantly dependent on import of bulk drugs that are used in formulation of medicine. Even though we produce 20% of our generic drugs in the world, we are dependent on import of bulk drugs that are used in the formulation of medicine. Now, the scheme for promotion of bulk drug parks has been launched. Then PLI scheme, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme for bulk drugs and for promoting domestic manufacturing of medical devices has been launched. So PLI scheme, Production Linked Incentive Scheme for bulk drugs and promoting domestic manufacturing of medical devices has been launched. Next we are coming to infrastructure. So within infrastructure, most important scheme is the NIP or the National Infrastructure Pipeline. As per World Bank database, India is ranked second among developing countries both by the number of PPP projects as well as associated investments. So according to the World Bank report, we have the second rank among the developing countries in the world, which has the maximum number of PPP projects. PPP projects are public-private partnership projects where the government in partnership with the private sector launches infrastructural projects. Next is viability gap funding, which will be covered. Viability gap funding will be covered in your concepts classes. Then in order to achieve a GDP of 5 trillion, this is the target of Government of India to achieve the aim of $5 trillion economy. By 2024-25, India needs to spend about $1.4 trillion over these years on infrastructure. So this is actually very important, that if only India makes a very good investment in the infrastructure sector, we'll be able to achieve the target of becoming a $5 trillion economy. NIP or National Infrastructure Pipeline was launched during financial year 2020-25 to provide world-class infrastructure across the country, improve the quality of life for all citizens. So NIP or National Infrastructure Pipeline, it was launched during 2020-25 financial year to provide world-class infrastructure across the country and to improve the quality of life. It envisages to improve project preparation and attract investment, both domestic and foreign, in infrastructure. To improve the project preparation and attract investment, domestic and foreign investment in infrastructure. Next is NMP, National Monetization Pipeline. It is developed by Niti Aayog in consultation with infrastructure line ministries. NMP and National Infrastructure Pipeline, these two are very, very important schemes of the Government of India. Asset monetization entails a limited period license, lease of an asset owned by government or public authority to a private sector entity for a period of time. That is National Monetization Pipeline. National Monetization Pipeline aims at asset monetization. That is, how can asset be monetized? That is, those assets that the government holds can be converted into money or monetized. That is, For a particular period of time, the government assets or some infrastructure can be leased to the private sector, and thereby government can gain some revenue from that. And such kind of funds that the government receive by monetizing the assets will be reinvested in new infrastructure or will be used for some public purpose, and that's how new infrastructure can be created. Transfer of asset back to the authority at the end of period. Maybe this lease period would be for 30 years. So after the lease period is over, the property will be transferred back to the government. And the advantage here is that strategic infrastructure that the government owns will not be transferred entirely to the private sector, but it will be transferred only for a period of time or for an agreed period of time, and this also will generate revenue for the government, and this revenue can be used for creating new infrastructure. Selection of de-risked and brownfield assets and stable revenue generation profile. Total indicative value of NMP for core assets of central government has been estimated at 6 lakh crore over 4-year period. So this is the estimate 6 lakh crore rupees from a period of 4 years of monetization. So this is regarding NMP, National Monetization Pipeline, and NIP, National Infrastructure Pipeline. These are two very important infrastructural projects of Government of India. And that's all for now. We'll be continuing with this chapter in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Wish you all the very best.